Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob, and this is Hunt Detail. Thank you for joining me. Happy Thanksgiving, and please take time to reconnect with friends and family. Please drive safe and enjoy some food and some football. It's an awesome time of year. It's also a time of year for Black Friday, and on a recent hunting gear podcast with Dan Johnson, I had a chance to talk with him about Black Friday deals that people should be on the lookout for. And it's really about upgrading your gear. And just a couple companies that have dropped their Black Friday deals recently that I've noticed was, in fact, Latitude Outdoors, Eberly Stock, First Light, Sitka, Mountain Ops, Novix, Seek Outside. Those are just some of the companies that I've noticed that are offering a discount at this time of year. And those Latitude carbon sticks, I absolutely love them. You can get 3 of them now for $189, which I think is a steal. And I would encourage you to check them out. Or if you're looking at other type of gear upgrades, this is a good time to spend some money, but save a little bit of coin as you look at into next year. Now, this time of year, I will say, is tough. I have a stack of CDs here. For those of you that ever listen to CDs, music on CDs, there was a band called Foreigner, and there was a song by the name of Head Games. And if you've heard it, you know it, and if you don't, look it up, and it's not a bad song. They have quite a few hits. But this time of year is Head Games. Like you want to be out in the woods. It's still the rut. It's November 20th as I'm recording it. It's still the rut. You still could see rut fest go on, chasing. Maybe you're in a situation where, a buck is truly locked down on a doe. I've certainly had that happen as early as November 7th, but it's a head game time because when you're out in the woods, you're in your stand or your saddle, and you're like, okay, where's the rut? Any second now, any moment now, it's going to happen, and you might be frustrated. You might find that you're sitting there for long periods of time with nothing happening, and you're getting anxious because you hear the drip, drip, drip of the season moving on, going away, and or the rut at least moving on and going away, and it can be very psychologically taxing. And what I will say is there's a couple things here, and it reminds me of sort of another 80s reference of the movie Animal House, which I think came out in the 80s, where Bluto goes, was it over when Germany bombed Pearl Harbor? And when the going get tough, the tough get, and he doesn't really finish that sentence, but it can be a difficult time, but I would encourage you to think about your future self and think about when it's February and deer season is over, did you sort of put it all on the line? I mean, last year I talked about the FOMO and legacy and those sorts of things, but when you did have a chance to get up another morning or put another evening sit out there, did you do it, or did you sort of say, you know what, I'm kind of tired, I'm going to sit this one out? And I would encourage you to not to. I would encourage you to stick it out, to tough it out. And what I would really encourage you to do is to scout more than hunt, because like, I think sometimes we think of the rut as like, oh, all I just need to be is out in the woods. I just get up in a tree and it'll happen. And maybe it has happened for you before, where you just picked a tree and boom, you got lucky, or a friend of yours, that sort of thing. And I think, in most cases, you need to scout more than hunt. Whether it's during the rut or before the rut or after the rut, you need to cover ground to figure out where the deer are. And if you bump deer, that's okay. It's not the end of the world, because that means something. You've figured something out. You found where they're bedded or where they're feeding, or you found where the rut is taking place. And so when you have those opportunities to maybe you do a morning sit in a pinch, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to get out, I'm going to cover ground, and I'm going to find where this is actually taking place. Or maybe it's a windy, rainy day. It's a great day to do some still hunting and cover some ground and it'll help cover your movement. Take your binos and slip through the woods and see if, I mean, there's a lot of the leaves have come off the tree. You can actually see pretty well, and you might actually find the rut if you haven't had that opportunity, or if you haven't been finding it with what you've been doing. And so I know it can be difficult, but I would again encourage you to think about your future self and think about the other dynamic is that as we move forward into the season, there's going to be less and less hunters. So you're going to have less people to compete with. You're going to have sections of public land all to yourself. They're either going to be people that have already filled their tag, or maybe they've already burned up vacation, or maybe they are just tired and maybe they've given up. And now you've got the woods to yourself. And now not only are you covering ground, you're learning and you're building that database for next year and in the following years after. So I just want to encourage you in that perspective. And I will transition with my own sort of rut story from this past weekend. So I hunted Saturday, all of Saturday, and then most of Sunday. And so Saturday, I'm hunting to fill my second tag in a different state, and this is an area I described briefly before, where you have east and west facing ridges, or I'm sorry, ridges that run east and west. And so on one side you have a south facing slope, on the other side you have a north facing slope. I've killed bucks on both sides, good bucks, and I understand this area pretty well, but not, there's always more to learn about how deer use this terrain and etc. And so Saturday morning I set up on the north side on a point, because I know that the does can tend to bed at this area, and if there's any sort of chasing or anything of that going on, it could be primarily there. And so I did have a deer burn through. I mean, running. Oh, maybe like that. Maybe I think it was a buck. Maybe that they were maybe bumped, and I didn't get a good look at his size. I think it might have been a small buck, but he might have been bumped from another area. But he was burning through, and I did grunt at him. He stopped for a second, and then he kept moving, and so it was one of those bluebird days where it's very bright outside, and the sun's out, no clouds, and it's really hard to see certain things because of the shadows of the trees and the leaves on the terrain and on any animal that comes through. So I got down and moved across to the other side and set up on the north side. I'm sorry, up on south facing slope, and this is actually where a lot of the bucks bed, because there's so many on the north side. There are no benches. It is sort of almost straight up and straight down. It's very open, strangely, but the south side is covered with brush, in tiers of several benches at different levels. It's really an ideal setup for a buck. Now, I get a lot of south winds, so that means that there's a lot of south winds going in their face and a lot of thermals coming up. So it's sort of counterintuitive to what we would hear about buck bedding, because normally if you get a lot of south winds, they're going to be on a north slope with that leeward wind coming over and the thermals coming up, yada yada yada. But they're actually using the south side to bed more, and that's how I've killed. A lot of times that's the patterns that I see, is they'll be coming down from those bedding areas to check scrapes and check does and that sort of thing. And so about 2:30, I had a buck coming through, and I thought it was two people. The way that it was just busting brush, like it was like two hunters with big tree stands or something on, like. I even, just I thought, oh, it's two guys, and then I look again, and I was like, oh, it's a buck, and it's a shooter buck, and so I got ready, and all I can say, and I'm not going to give you the details, is that mistakes were made, and it's very painful, and it's disappointing. I don't have that buck. I should, and I could, but I don't. And I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'm not going to share the details because it's very frustrating to me as you replay this what happened after, as a result of that experience. But I'll leave you with this. Jocko Willink has a video called Good. If you haven't heard him talk about this, you should. Because anytime mistakes are happen or anything time something bad happens, his response is good. Because what it means is opportunity for something else. So I screwed up on this or I screwed up on that. Good. It means that more time, more prep, more opportunity for the next time. And so if you've made the mistakes, you've busted a buck, you missed when you shot, you made a bad shot, you didn't recover that animal, you slept in, you skipped, you whatever, you made too much noise. Good, because it's just that much more to prepare you for your next hunt, your next season, your next opportunity. Best of luck. Please share this with friends and like and subscribe, and good luck.